Hello, Zimbabwe, and welcome once again to Zimbabwe Daily. And these are the Walper conversations taking place on a beautiful Monday morning. Afternoon it is, it's midday, right? So we hope you're doing all right wherever you are joining us from. So, yes, 21 years ago, a huge milestone in promoting women's rights in Africa was attained, and this was through the collective efforts of governments, civic society organizations, and women's rights defenders, bringing about the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa, also called the Maputo Protocol. So this protocol covers a wide range of issues, including the political, economic, social, and cultural rights of women. It guarantees women's rights to dignity, equality, and non-discrimination, as well as emphasizes their right to participate in decision-making processes at all levels. The treaty also addresses human rights violations such as female genital mutilation, child marriages, and gender-based violence. So far, 44 countries out of the 55 African Union member states have ratified the protocol. The latest, or the last I checked, being South Sudan in 2023. So today, the WALPA conversations bring in what we are calling an assessment of the Maputo Protocol, progress, challenges, and future directions for women's political participation in SADC. And for us to have this conversation, I have my panel of discussants here, and I'm going to ask each one of them to introduce themselves so that we get to know them and we get to love them and appreciate the expertise that they bring on this conversation. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'll start with you, Memory. Please unmute your mic and introduce yourself.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I am so grateful and I don't take this lightly. My name is Memory Tapela Banda. I am from Zambia and I am a SADC youth parliamentarian as well as a youth peace. A women's youth peace and security activist, also a founder of an organization that focuses on women's rights as well as disability rights in Zambia. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Welcome so much. We appreciate you all the way from Zambia. Over to you, Tapiwa Lukuta.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tapio Lukuta, as already mentioned. I am a Pan-Africanist, a human rights defender, as well as a governance and youth activist. My work has basically just been centered on empowering young people in the region through awareness programs as well as sensitization programs. And currently, I am the regional consultant.
Tapiwa, we've lost you there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Should I start again?
You said you are now a consultant.
Oh, yes. So I'm the regional consultant for youth and social inclusion for Southern African Human Rights Defenders, Southern Defenders.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Over to you, Tapiwa Nashe, the only gent in the house.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to interact with fellow young people. I am Tapiwa Nashe Chiriga from Zimbabwe. I am a social justice activist. I'm a human rights defender. I'm a former student leader. But most importantly, I'm a peace builder and I work with you Zimbabwe First, a peace building organization and human rights monitoring organization in Zimbabwe. I also work with a number of youth organizations in Zimbabwe in promoting constitutional literacy and human rights literacy. Thank you. And I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And over to you, Tatu.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Tatu Mbamba from Tanzania, co-founder and CEO of Vision for Future Life organization. Basically, we are dealing with sexual reproductive health and rights and leadership to women and youth in Tanzania. Currently, we are running two programs in that we use a Swahili version that is Kapula Binti Fahari, means the basket of young girl, and Kijana Jamvini means the mat of the youth. All of those, we're just doing an advocacy and trainings for young people and young girls, those teen mothers, and making sure that they are reaching their potential regardless of whatever they're passing through, and young youth, making sure that they are go beyond, they cannot stand aside, or they don't left behind in whatever situation they are passing through. As we can see in Tanzania, mostly of the population, 60% and above, are youth. So we are just preparing this kind of generation into to be a very good citizens and to conquer each challenges they are facing into leadership and their reproductive healthy system. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I see we have got a wide range of expertise amongst our panelists, and I'm sure we're going to enjoy this conversation. So I want us to just go right into it and start by talking about the Maputo Protocol itself. Like, has there been any significant achievement that have been made in promoting women's political participation in SADC since its adoption? I want to hear the experiences from your country and a general assessment of how it's looking in the region. And I'm going to start with you, Tapiwa Lukuta. Please unmute your mic and tell us about any achievements that have been made in promoting women's political participation in SADC. Tapiwa, please unmute your mic so that we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I didn't realize that I was still unmuted. Thank you so much again for that question. I think just to start off, the Maputo Protocol, I feel, has been one of the most progressive political frameworks to be developed in our region. Our leaders and the powers that may be, especially in our African context, do have a tendency of having what I call a policy fatigue, whereby we've got so many political frameworks or policy frameworks that are developed, and following through with what is agreed on is usually the biggest problem that's there. So we see this overcommitment of these protocols and these frameworks, but seeing a very huge gap in terms of the implementation aspect of it. But I think with regards to promoting women and girls' rights, this is quite a progressive development that we've seen in our region. So as already mentioned in the intro, that this is about 21 years in the making. And what we've seen so far is that there is definitely increased representation. So for many of our SADC countries, we've seen that in countries like South Africa, as well as Mozambique, there's so many improvements in the number of women in parliament and other political positions, not forgetting Zambia as well. We've seen a really, really huge increase from the time that this was adopted. We've also seen that there are a lot of reforms in terms of the policies in these independent countries, whereby we see a lot of gender equality in politics being promoted. We see women leaders as well being put in power, and I believe there's been a mindset shift that has been there in the last 21 years, whereby women are really now basically being seen as competent equals to their males, and this has definitely increased representation of women. We also see that in some countries we see an increase in terms of posts or leadership positions as well being there, and gender units as well being introduced in our SADC countries. So I think, yeah, without without delving much further, I think that's basically the improvement that we've seen over the years, which is really quite commendable.
That's excellent. I'll go to Tanzania. Do you share the same sentiments around the improvement on women's participation and the closing in of gaps around gender issues?
Oh, yes, I can say yes, though it's not that much, but we have seen the improvement of this Maputo Protocol back then into our countries. Like I have an example. Like currently, we have a Tanzanian president, which has never been happened over 60 years ago since independence of Tanzania, and it has been shocked because. The way the president came into the position, it's after the death of the former president, but that ain't a problem. We have seen at first people were worried that this woman cannot lead on the this kind of big position in our country, but we have seen a lot of success and a lot of improvement over the president we have in terms of economies, in terms of political resistance, because in the country of discriminations, you might find most of the of people, they are just seeing the women cannot lead, but we have seen that she's a bit of showing that a woman can lead and can make change into the community. And also we have this a member of a speaker of the parliament, Madam Tulia Axon. She's unleashing whatever it's happening into the on the ground. She's the speaker of our parliament as a woman, and she's the speaker of the world parliament. This is the success story, I can say, into our country, and it's being a very big achievement, since it has never happened in Tanzania before, to get that kind of lady who can go beyond the world from the SADC countries. So in Tanzania, we have seen that, and because I sense and I've saying that is an achievement to get an IPU president who leads the parliamentary world from Tanzania. It's just because she got the support from the member state from the SADC countries, because if they didn't support her, she couldn't be there. So the agenda or the Maputo Protocol issues, it has been improved, because they were having a belief over this lady. And apart from that, since we adopt this Maputo Protocol in Tanzania, we have another. We were having. Political leaders into parliament, the number of women politicians into become the member of parliament, and even into the cabinet is starting to increase. And even the other some women, they're being given a very sensitive sector, I can say, we have the one who is very close to, I've seen the Tamisemi. I don't know to say in the other one. These the sector which is very, very, very potential, that leads the majority of the sectors within the intersect other sector. The one who leads it's a woman. So we can see that it's an achievement of the Maputo Protocol, and we practice in here in Tanzania. And even the former president was a man, late Magufuli, but still he managed to elect or to appoint the young women into becoming the district commissioners. Very young women. We find, I'll take an example, the former district commissioner, the Pangani district commissioner. She was very, very young. The former Korogo district commissioner, she was very young, Akisa Kasongo. So we can tell those that is a bit exemplary. At least we're clicking on this protocol in the SADC countries, including Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, that is really, really significant achievements being recorded in Tanzania. And yeah, we hope we'll see more and more African countries adopting these measures and really implementing what they are committing to. I'll come to you, Memory.
Sure, that's a very good question. And thank you so much to Tatu for that insightful information about Tanzania and the works that you're doing. Um, I would firstly like to say Zambia ratified the Maputo Protocol in 2016. And also, for somebody who might not have so much insight out there, what is the Maputo Protocol? I would like to just give more insight to it. So, as we might not know, the Maputo Protocol is also known as the Protocol of Africa, the African Charter on human rights as well as people's rights of women in Africa. So the protocol initially aims to address the challenges that women face in Africa. This might cater for GBV, harmful practices, as well as access to health and education, as the host had alluded at first. So, responding to your question, the Maputo Protocol has really been a powerful tool, providing a legal and policy framework that has really acted as an advancement in the rights of women in Africa, as well as um, the agenda on gender equality in Africa. So Zambia has increased the health allocation from 10.4% as of 2023 to 11.2 in 2024, but still definitely we need to increase more on the health allocation to the women by 15% as per Maputo Protocol that states that women should definitely be catered for when it comes to the health sector. We definitely see an improvement when it comes to the Maputo Protocol and the advancement on women's rights in Africa. I would like to also just state that Zambia, just like Tanzania, we have a vice woman president. So this already is a great example to that young woman out there in the world who looks up to somebody and they want to see a sign or rather representation of a woman in leadership and politics to say. And that already has brought a different perspective when it comes to politics in my country. We also have a minister who currently was moved to Minister of Housing and Lands. She was a Minister of Health. And seeing such positions, seeing such women taking up spaces in such positions really definitely brings an alertness to Africa that the Maputo Protocol has really been helping, and it has really been a powerful tool when it comes to law enforcement as well as policy implementation. Looking at the fact that we still are able to point out some women who are in leadership positions. Of course, we might not yet be there already after 21 years, but still the fact that we are able to see an actual representation of other women in leadership positions and other young women aspiring for political leadership spaces is really a great idea to see. Also, I would like to talk about Rwanda. Rwanda really passed on a law in 2003 that reserved 30% of seats in the parliament for women. This has resulted to an increase of women's participation in representation of political affairs as well as political aspirations for women in Rwanda. This is a great example that Africa is getting there, and the protocol is actually helping more countries in the African region as well as other regions. So, with that said, I would like to say that there's a great increase, and we are yet to see more successful stories in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I see that we are really looking at the progress that we have made as SADC countries in terms of implementing the protocol's provisions and the impact that it has had on women's representation. So if you're just joining us, we are having a conversation assessing 21 years of the Maputo Protocol, progress, challenges, and future directions for women's political participation in SADC. And we have representation coming through from Tanzania, from Zambia, from South Africa, and from Zimbabwe. And these are the WALPE conversations brought to you by the Women's Academy for Leadership and Political Excellence. Now, I want to come to you, Tapiwana Chiriga from Zimbabwe. Maybe you can also just give us a general assessment from your perspective as a social justice activist, a peace builder as well, around issues to do with women's participation in politics in SADC.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. I would say, firstly, the protocol to the African Charter on Human sides on the rights of women in Africa, which is called the Maputo Protocol, as many have rightly said. I would like to echo Tapio Lukuta's words first, that it is one of the most progressive legal instruments because it provides a comprehensive set of human rights for African women, to the extent that a number of African scholars have called it the African Bill of Rights for women, for women's human rights, which shows how much it is respected across the world, and because it details substantive human rights for women, covering an entire spectrum from civil and political rights, economic, social and cultural, and even environmental rights themselves. So it is one of the most progressive set of a human rights instrument across Africa and even in the world. It is one of the most progressive you can find. But maybe coming to Zimbabwe, I think the most important part would be to mention that it was ratified by Zimbabwe on the 15th of April 2008, which is 5 years after it was after it came into force in 2003. But in Zimbabwe, I think the most important thing is that in 2013 we come up with a constitution whose Section 17, among its objectives, specifies the promotion of gender balance as a national objective. That's number one. Number two, in our Bill of Rights, it was in the 2013 Constitution, inspired by the Maputo Protocol, that we saw equality and non-discrimination being clearly and succinctly identified as a fundamental right, as a fundamental human right, Section 56 of our Constitution. And also, we also now have a distinct Section 80 of the Constitution, which enshrines the rights of women in the Bill of Rights in Zimbabwe. So I think it is one of the major improvements in terms of how we strive to at least respect the Maputo Protocol and also implement the key steps towards gender balance. And also, in the 2013 constitution, you would see that Section 245 establishes what is called the Zimbabwe Gender Commission, whose key role is promoting gender equality. The most interesting thing about the Zimbabwe Gender Commission is that it is one of the 5 institutions that are specifically designed as commissions supporting democracy. They include the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, the Zimbabwe Media Commission, the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, and also the Zimbabwe Gender Commission itself, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. So you would see how much Zimbabwe has over the years started to seriously to take seriously the fight for gender equality, the fight for gender balance, and most importantly, the empowerment of women to ensure that they are given a fair voice, they are given an equal voice with men on the political stage, on the civic space, in the civic space, and on every other facet of human life. You would see that in Zimbabwe, in the 2013 constitution, we also came up with what is called the quota system for women, where we have on top of the 210 constituencies, parliamentary constituencies that we have 60 more seats that are reserved for women. And recently, that provision was meant to cater for the first 10 years of the life of our constitution, that is from 2013 to 2023. But upon the realization that the quota system had not achieved what it was intended to do, which is to improve women participation in significantly in particularly in parliament, we had to, as a country, we had to extend the life of the women's quota to 2033. And it was also extended to local authorities. But I'll come back to the limitations of the quota system when you speak around challenges, hopefully later in the discussion. Um, you would also see that in Zimbabwe, key institutions are also led by women. You have very vocal MPs like the former MP for Harare West, Madam Jessie Majome, who is now leading the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, which is which is also one of the key independent commissions supporting democracy. And I think it is something that we can be proud of as a country. It is something that we can be proud of as a even as a region, that we have such a key institution that is being led by a lady who is very competent, and we hope that as she begins a tenure, she can ensure that the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission and the Zimbabwe Gender Commission can work hand in glove to ensure that there is gender balance and the protection of women rights, the protection of human rights, and also ensure that we strengthen our human rights protection mechanism. Regarding the laws, we've managed to streamline a lot of laws to align them, number one, with the Constitution, and also to model them in a way that ensures that we at least follow the dictates of the Maputo Protocol. I'll speak of the Marriage Act. We've amended our criminal codification laws that so that we strengthen our position in as far as eliminating child marriages is concerned and other issues that came up with the Maputo Protocol. We've also dealt with customary marriages. Recently, we saw the new marriage bill that dealt with customary marriages and protecting the rights of women who are in customary marriages. We've seen a number of other laws. We also have a national gender policy. We've come up with a revamped Domestic Violence Act that protects women more, although more can be done. I'm sure, just as others have said, we have to applaud the progress that has been made thanks to the Maputo Protocol. Yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done as we go forward, but as it stands now, we need to be able to applaud the work that has been done so far.
Yes, indeed. And it shows that there has been a lot of work that has been done across the countries in our region and hopefully across the continent and globally as we progress towards achieving a, a, a gender a gender equal politics, social and cultural processes that enable us to achieve more. And I want us to uh, immediately delve into the challenges that continue to persist. What are some of these barriers, especially when it comes to women's political participation? I think generally we all agree that women have got spaces that they have traditionally been confined in, and they have not been allowed or have not been given space to occupy other areas, which we have seen over the years a great improvement. Women in sciences, technology, the women taking over, political spaces, women taking over economic spaces, women taking over, some of these areas where we have, been discriminated against before. So as we have highlighted the progress that has been made so far, maybe we also need to speak immediately on the challenges that continue to hinder women's participation despite the protocol. So I'll start with you, Tapiwa, so that you can actually talk to us through the challenges that you had started to mention. Take us through there, then we just do another round speaking on these challenges.
I assume you mean this Tapioa.
Yes, 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 you.
Okay, thank you. There being two Tapioas. So I think I will speak to firstly the inadequacies around the quota system, because you would see that there was a decrease in as far as the number of elected women MPs in the 2023 election from the 2013 and 2018 elections. It would seem that the quota system has failed to address these disparities, particularly in parliament. But we will continue to hope that there will be it will address that, and there will be improved women participation. But I think what has hindered women participation more in Zimbabwe is the toxic political culture that has entrenched itself, that manifests itself in violence, in intolerance, and in insults, hate speech, hatred, and intimidation. And you would know that women are disproportionately affected. They are worse affected by violence. They are worse affected by intimidation. They are worse affected by intolerance. So when you have such a toxic political culture, women tend to shy away from political participation. So you can have progressive laws as a country. You can continue encouraging women to participate, but then when they encounter violence, physical violence, and maybe a violation even of Article 4 of the Maputo Protocol itself, the right to life, integrity, and security. You've seen a number of young women in Zimbabwe getting abducted. Right now, as we speak, we have more than 30 women in prison. We are being detained without trial at Shikurubi Maximum Security Prison for holding a commemorative meeting of the Day of the African Child on the 16th of June 2024. And they're still in prison today. Today is day 43 of them being in prison. One of them is in jail with her 1-year-old child inside the dungeons of terror, the same prison that has been declared unfit for human habitation by a number of our court orders. You would see that even amongst them, there's also another woman who was detained with a fractured leg as a result of police brutality when she was arrested, and she was initially denied the right to medical attention, even as Section 50 of our Constitution clearly outlines a right to medical attention by a doctor of her choice when she's in police custody and also in state custody. And also, you would see that our institutions are very weak. I was talking about the Zimbabwe Gender Commission being a true positive in as far as the fight for gender equality is concerned. But you would see that its constitutional limitations and its constitutional provisions mandate, and also what is expected of it, is not exactly uh, forceful. Is not exactly. I would say that it's not enough to be able to have it force. To be able to have it guide the nation towards the path to gender equality. And I think I would also speak around its capacity to fully pursue gender equality in as far as the support that it gets from the fiscus is concerned. It is still very little, just like the other four independent commissions that should be supporting democracy. You would see that it's still under resourced and under supported. I would also maybe rush to speak around the closure of civic and democratic space, because a lot of work had been done by civil organizations, including by organizations like WAUPE. But as the coming in of the Public Voluntary Organizations Bill, um, and the reality of the closure of civic and democratic space continues to be on the horizon, you would see that such great work that has been done in communities is going to be undone, and a number of women organizations have been shut out of communities. I will speak about Lupani, I'll speak about Cholocho, I'll speak about other areas in Matabeleland South, where a number of women organizations have been doing great work in as far as educating women on their rights, educating women on civic responsibilities and political participation. But then that is going to be undone thanks to the state's appetite to close civic and democratic space. I think I will end here so that I don't spend much time.
Right. Thank you so much for that reflection, Tapiwa Nashe, because we also realize that it's one thing to accept the protocol. It is another for it to be a tool that, everyone is willing to work with and use across cultural divides within different nations. And thank you so much for looking at some of the weaknesses that we have seen within our own systems or structures in Zimbabwe. Now, maybe Memory, if you can also unmute your mic and share with us the challenges that you are also facing in Zambia.
Definitely, that's a very good question. So, as a young woman in human rights defenders in office as a SADC youth parliamentarian, I myself have faced so many challenges and barriers in Africa as well as in Zambia. So, some of the barriers that are there are limited to access to resources and funding. Quite all right, you might be so passionate in being part of the politics, or being part, or aspiring to be a politician, or aspiring to be in any of the offices in the political spaces, but the fact still remains that access to resources in Africa is very minimal, mostly in the SADC region, when it comes to young women taking part in politics, because there's a lot of stereotypes thinking you are incapable, or rather you are not able to handle the resources. That's a huge challenge already on its own. Another challenge is violence and harassment. On harassment, we can also talk about sexual harassment. I have experienced it myself, where not only not only in my country but also in other countries, where we are scared because you are in this spotlight and because people know you to be in this office, and so you are harassed and people feel entitled to your body, people feel entitled to having access to you. Simple things like trying to force you to talk to them, simple things like questioning you inappropriately with an inappropriate questions that you're not comfortable with, trying to get to know about your personal life that doesn't even involve the political space that you are in. That already on its own feels like a huge harassment. And in Africa, we've got a long way to go, because people do not understand the difference between the private life and somebody's personal life, as well as their public life. So most women, I can say that they feel harassed in a way that they do not feel protected by the government on its own, as well as by the community. Policies are there, rights are there. We know our rights, but it's definitely hard to bring these culprits to book whenever anything happens to you. I had an incident. I was sexually harassed. I tried to report that. It took so long until I felt frustrated. What did I do? I dropped it, because these things do not go anywhere. These issues are not taken anywhere, and it's frustrating for us. And sometimes it feels like, oh, maybe I should just give up, right? So those are some of the barriers and challenges that actually young women are facing. And if they see it from the outside perspective, or if I share it and somebody's listening, they'll definitely get scared. So those barriers are actually preventing a lot of young women to come and stand in the gap when it comes to politics in Africa. Not only that, the lack of inclusivity is definitely a huge topic to talk about and to cater. While we still talk about all inclusivity and looking at the um, UN ratification on human rights, talking about 2030 agenda of inclusion and leaving no one behind, there is still lack of inclusivity, whereby we do not see young women, or rather women with disabilities, in the political spaces. Why so? The representation really matters. When one gets to see, oh, there is inclusion, a woman or a young woman with a disability, or a person with a disability is able to stand in the gap in the political spaces in the SADC region, well, I can do it, or they would feel inspired to also do the same. But we have a minimal, or rather 0.1% in the SADC region of a representation of women, women in politics who have disabilities. We talk about inclusivity. How are we including them? How are we involving them? Representation matters. If we could see 1, 5, or even just 2 from any other country standing in the gap when it comes to inclusivity, and pointing one woman who has a disability, or she's blind, vision impaired, or rather hearing has a hearing impairment, and they are able to stand for office in the political spaces, that would be very, very much powerful and amazing to see. So those are some of the barriers that we're actually facing in the SADC region that I would have loved to go further, but looking at time, I'll leave it to the others. Thank you so much.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Memory. I'll come to you, Tatu. I hope you can still hear me. I would also want you to come in and talk about the challenges that you have noted in terms of women's participation in SADC, despite the Maputo Protocol. Tatu, if you may unmute
Yeah,
your
I can
mic.
hear you, though you are breaking,
All
but
right.
I can hear. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so maybe you can also talk to us, take us through the challenges and the gaps in implementation, enforcement, and monitoring of the protocol's provisions.
Okay, okay, definitely. There are several challenges in this issue of Maputo protocols, though it's something which is huge, and starting we have already see the progress and everything into our nation. But I can talk more into the in terms of what I'm doing and what I've been facing in my career and the community itself. Still, we have this kind of social cultural norms and religion belief of women leadership, and still that we don't believe on some of the cult of traditional. They don't believe in women leadership. In it itself, it's just coming into that. Take an example in Tanzania, the most of the part and where I come from, the southern part of it, and the zonal the zonal part of it, still it's a big problem, because there is a huge gender discrimination. There is a huge humiliation of our women. There is a huge inequalities over women on once it's become when it comes the issue of our leadership, because they don't believe in that women can lead. And exemplarily, once it takes to when the Madam Samia Suluhu Hassan was having that position, unfortunate over the God fate. She was just there. It was a rumor between that this woman cannot lead and cannot be led by women. And I was even challenging other men that in the future plans, we will have more president over in our country who can lead. And Samia Suluhu Hassan was the one who's starting over it. But most of the men, they seems like they don't want this kind of thing to continue. And sometimes they coming they are a bit challenging. They're a bit challenging the woman in behind the back. And some of them I can tell, like they were still not believing, even though we talk about women human rights, in terms of women's rights, and we have already signed the Maputo Protocol. But I can tell some of the leader, I cannot even mention the names, but some of the leader, they didn't still not believe on women leadership, though they were educated, though they are there on the top of, they can even help women to be into that position. But some of them they're in the big position, but they don't still believe on women leadership. When it comes to the social, the cultural norms, still we talk about Maputo Protocol, we talk about women. Now still we have this kind of FGM, female genital mutilations, and some of the regions in member state, example in Tanzania, they are still in practice. And some of and the other leaders in the local level, they're supporting this kind of thing, and you have seen, and they know what is really going on. They know about human rights, but still they're supporting the community. And what they did, they don't want to voice off, to raise up their voices over this and doing maybe go strictly into laws and everything. Though the laws are there, the policies are there for over women on FGM, but still they just working on top of that law. They're just working, like I can say, they are grinding that laws. They don't want to be hard because of protecting their political interest. They want to be voted by their voters within that community, and that's why they don't want to speak about FGM, and they're supporting FGM. You can see, and that person is supporting is a leader into himself. So you see how we have a long way to go. But in terms of gender-based violence, it still remains a significant challenge, and to access the quality healthcare services. Still, we compromise about healthcare services. Once it comes to reproductive health, we found many young girls, they are getting pregnant in schools, and at the end of the day, they're just remaining the caregiver at home places. And still, even though the government implemented a little bit of it, a little bit. If I'm saying a little of it, means that they are trying to initiate the reproductive healthy education into schools, but still what they are doing is not relevant into the context of what is happening on the ground. Because if you teach someone, so that is not relevant. It's really relevant. So it's a big challenge. It's really challenging that these protocols, we need, we have a very long way to go. But I believe even Roma is not built at once. So let us, I'm just giving help myself that there is something can be done into our community as we are starting to raise over our voices, and the generation is still impacting the knowledge to the coming, the present and coming generation. Thank you.
Powerful. Thank you so much, Chato. And Tapiwa Lukuta, you may also want to come through and just speak to some of these challenges before we move on to lessons learned from the protocol.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really want to appreciate the very deep insight which has been given by my fellow colleagues. I think it's a really good sign when we've got moved emotionally by these matters, and I can see that coming from my fellow colleagues, and I think that's an amazing development as well. Perhaps just to add on, because majority of the things have already been mentioned, and I think that on its own shows how universal the problems that women face are. So regardless of whatever country they may come from, regardless of whatever post or position that they may acquire or obtain, the challenges are still the same. And I think for me, one of the things that I've seen to stand out, being once upon a time a student leader or a woman leader at some point, co-leading a movement as well, I have noted or noticed that there's some issues, or there's one particular issue I feel that most women would face regardless of whatever level that they're at. And I think that biggest problem is an internal one. I think women generally suffer from a lot of um, an imposter complex, as well as an inferiority complex. So these are really have been sustained by the cultural barriers that we see in our communities as well as our countries at large. For time immemorial, women have been, the idea of women being inferior has been enforced in them. And I think this is something that has taken a really long time to wear off in our societies. And till today, it doesn't matter what position that a woman might acquire or obtain, or whatever level that she might obtain, you'd see that there's still this, for lack of a better a term to use, there's still this disrespect from her fellow colleagues, this demeaning kind of perspective that her fellow colleagues might have towards her, including other fellow women who might still believe somehow that, she might not be competent to achieve that that position or post. As Tatu has elaboratively explained the situation in Tanzania concerning the female president who is there, that despite her actually obtaining one of the greatest leadership posts that might be there in their country, she's still being demeaned and being looked down upon by her fellow colleagues, as well as other voices that may speak into her life. And I think that is the biggest problem. Women still face that the mental health aspect of feeling inferior, or feeling lesser than, or feeling as though they don't belong. And I think there should be a way in which we can invest in such conversations, invest in such that form of capacity building for our women leaders as well. So yeah, I think that's one thing. And then perhaps the other thing as well is adding on to what was already mentioned, is the idea of the lack of knowledge as well as capacity of our women. You'd find that women actually do assume certain leadership positions, although they don't usually they don't self-identify as leaders. And that is because of, again, the issue that I spoke of, the inferiority complex, but again, because their contributions towards the building of society are not usually seen as constructive. For example, women who are in our communities, you'd see them leading in terms of mobilization. So especially when it comes to things like elections and the like, you'd find that women are usually in the lead of ganging up, and also being able to round up many supporters for these elections and the like, as well as for community gatherings, community meetings. It's women who are in the lead of mobilizing their fellow community members for these conversations. But then society doesn't necessarily view that as leadership. So that stands to be one of the problems that are there. And again, because our women are not educated, you're seeing that the retention in schools, especially at secondary school level, in many of the SADC countries, is very, very low for our girls. So our girls are not getting the education they need due to, the many barriers such as teenage pregnancy, etc. And they're not getting that knowledge, and that capacity is not being built in them actually for them to be at a good level to compete with their counterparts. So yeah, I think that's what I'll say. Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
And as the conversation goes deeper and we're able to explore all of this, time starts to run away from us. But I want us to be able to move a step further. We've spoken about the progress that we've made in terms of the Maputo Protocol. We've also spoken around the challenges that we continue to face even today, 21 years later, around its implementation and the challenges that we are facing, even to just monitor the successes of this of the provisions of this protocol. Now I want us to take a step further. I know Chiriga spoke earlier on about shrinking civic space in Zimbabwe, and obviously what others have also highlighted in their areas. But how can we leverage technology and the media in order to enhance women's participation in politics, in the economy, in society? And I love the fact that Tapiwa Lukuta, you highlighted the fact that women are already at the forefront, mobilizing communities, mobilizing for support, gathering people together so that people begin to talk. But how can we then ensure that the protocol doesn't just die a natural death, but if we are to have another conversation in, say, 5 years, we want to be able to say these challenges have already been addressed in such and such a way. But how can we make use of technology, and the media to push forward the agenda of the Maputo Protocol? Anyone can just unmute themselves and then come in.
Perhaps I can go ahead,
Yes, please.
if that's okay. Yes, this is WI. Yeah. So I think really we need stricter digital or cyber laws that actually protect our women. Women are disproportionately affected when it comes to cyberbullying and cyber abuse. You'd find that, for a woman leader, for example, it's so much easier for her to be slandered online, either via, sharing her nudes or inappropriate pictures, or coming up with memes and other things, that really would degrade her, as a person or as a human being. And I think we need stricter laws, cyber laws, that also would address, the use of platforms such as, Facebook and the like, which will monitor as well as also limit people or restrict people from sharing certain imagery that is consistent with abuse towards women as well as girls. So yeah, I think for me the biggest thing would be stricter cyber laws to protect all women across the region as well as the globe at large.
All right, thank you so much. Anyone else? All right. Thank you so much, Tapiwa, for that. Stricter digital and cyber laws across the continent as part of protecting women from cyberbullying and online abuse. Maybe we need to continue. What strategic actions are needed to address the remaining challenges and accelerate progress in women's political participation? And what role can civic society, international organizations, and other stakeholders play in supporting women's, political, economic, social empowerment in SADC? Tapiwa Nashechiriga.
Please, may you repeat the question? I think I didn't get part of it.
All right. I'm saying what strategic actions or what strategic interventions need to be made in order to address the remaining challenges and accelerate progress in women's political participation?
I think firstly we need to, at national and regional levels, we need to ensure that our institutions are strong, because we can have beautiful protocols, we can have great laws, we can align our laws to our constitutions in the Maputo Protocol and even the UN various human rights instruments. But as long as we have very weak institutions, as long as we don't fund and resource and strengthen the institution that should be supporting human rights protection, if we don't fund and resource those institutions like the Zimbabwe Gender Commission and the various institutions that should be protecting women and ensuring that they foster improve and promote women empowerment and gender balance and gender equality and equity, we will not exactly go anywhere. Um, Going into maybe Zimbabwe as a specific example, I think we need to revamp our electoral system because I think the quota system is simply failing. If we are to revamp our electoral system to ensure that we go full proportional representation and ensure that we do the zebra system in terms of our parliamentary representatives are concerned, and do away with the first past the post because it is vicious, it is anti-women, it disproportionately disadvantages women every time when there's an election, and we will continue crying until maybe Jesus Christ comes. So we need to do away with our first past the post system in Zimbabwe and ensure that we go full PR and to ensure that there is the true 50-50 representation in government, particularly parliament. And also, we also need to de-elitize these conversations because as long as we continue speaking about the Maputo Protocol and those kind nice ways, those big words we love to use and on fancy platforms instead of going to those communities, I think it will continue to be an elite conversation which the young woman in younger day in Zimbabwe will not be able to understand. So we might need to reduce maybe the conversations to a level where the ordinary women on the street, the ordinary women in the field, they can understand them, and maybe translate these conventions and our laws into the vernacular, ensure that we we ensure that women and also even men themselves understand what we'll be talking about when we talk about gender balance, when we talk about these international conventions and protocols. And maybe lastly, we might need to, I had not spoken about the national action plans on women, peace and security. I realized that as per May 2024, only 8 of the 16 SADC countries had made progress at different levels in as far as aligning their national action plans on UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. Until we are able to make sure that the entire SADC is doing something in as far as women, peace and security is concerned, we will continue to cry about violence. We will continue to cry about the vicissitude of conflict and how women are affected by these things. But if we are to strengthen our institutions, if we are to ensure that we align our national action plans with UN Security Council Resolution 1325, also align our electoral systems, I think we can go forward.
Thank you very much. Memory?
Okay, thank you so much. Before I answer the question, I would also want to just add on to what my colleague had alluded on social media. We know the importance of social media and we know the importance of telling our own stories. I think it's high time that we come out of our shell and begin to tell our own stories. Most of the times we seek for platforms for our stories to be told, but it's time to leverage on our own platforms. Speak out, tell your story, and also just like my other colleague had alluded, Tapiwa, we need to also make sure that we disseminate information to its core to reach every marginalized group of people. We should provide information in sign language. We should provide information in Braille, making sure that we're catering for everybody, not only translating to local languages, but also catering persons for women with disabilities to make sure that they are also participating in the part of the conversation. On the strategic actions, I think providing more leadership trainings for women, because most women, actually, we might assume that they know when they don't know, and we might assume that they are capacitated when they are not capacitated. And also making sure that we're partnering with CSOs and NGOs that are also focusing on raising awareness on women's rights, as well as focusing on different issues that are protecting women's rights and also political engagement in the SADC region. There are also organizations like the Nala Firm. They're doing great and they're doing awesome. It's actually an initiative that is focused on empowering young women in office or aspiring to be politicians. And these organizations are our allies. We need to make sure that we're comfortable with working with our allies, and also making sure that these CSOs are also part of the conversation, that they push our agendas and help us in capacity building, as well as helping to raise awareness, to provide support and train women to be able to stand as leaders of today, not even tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tatu. Tatu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So maybe you can also come through just talking about the future direction, and maybe you can also give us an enlightenment around the intersections between women's political participation and other critical issues like economic empowerment, education, and healthcare.
It's okay. Thank you so much. First of all, the direction of these Maputo protocols and whatever women comes in. Um, First, I think that there is a need of having the really data. We need to conceptualize the data, because mostly of the member state, um, the data, they are not relevant. If you're saying that we have been reaching this far for maybe the teen pregnancies, we have been reaching this far for GBV, we've been reaching this far for whatever happens, which is not within within the Maputo protocols. At the end of the day, you might find that. The data are not relevant, because I can say those are the cooked data, and it's cooked data because they want be looking, they just want be looking nicely. They want to see maybe the funder or the donor to donate the money and see the progress of the program whatsoever. But that things, it's leads misunderstanding between the relevance of the or the implementation of the plan which has been planned, and the actual thing which is happening on the ground. And why I'm saying this is just because now currently when we talk about women empowerment, most of the people, they are just starting so seeing that women are more empowered, women are more empowered. That's why maybe the marriages are being disturbed, or the marriages there maybe there's a lot of breaking up, a lot of divorces because of the women empowerment. But the reality is not that. Someone takes the women empowerment as a battle between men and women into the community, but it's not that. And some of them, they're just saying that there is more women empowerment currently, and now women are taking over or leading over. But the reality, when it's come to the ground level, into the village, we're not talking about those people who are basing in town only. We're just talking about the people in the village, the interior part. They even don't know what Maputo Protocol is. What
Yeah.
if Yeah. So if these are local women, they don't know about the Maputo Protocol. How come you are telling me you have reached you have achieved the protocol? You are coming with your own percentage, that this kind of women are. This percent of women, they are reaching this amount, or we are just reaching this far. That is not really so. It making sense. We need to have this actual data. Where are we going to get the actual data? It's starting from the grassroots. If whatever we initiated, whatever is initiated into the SADC countries, it shouldn't be having maybe the petition signed. I don't know. Or maybe they should coming up with a collection, or having the profiles of each country, and each country should create a profile from national level to district level to the local level, where we can see the relevance of what, or with the achievement of whatever we are addressing into the on board. And also, we can have sustained advocacy and capacity building, resource mobilization to create only, or to have this strictly legal and the policy environment. Why I'm saying so is just because yes, we have these Maputo protocols, but we differ into development. We differ into policy. We differ into legal. We differ into laws. Example, in Tanzania, we were having that, and still is not changed to now, a law of marriage act. The marriage act it tells that a girl from 15 years of age can get married. And while we are terming that as a young girl, while at that age, that young lady, she's still at school. So you can imagine, and the law itself, it allows that girl to be into marriage. So and I thank God. Currently, the civil societies shouting over and starting over, and the bill is being sent into the parliament. At least they start to see, okay, we are going to change this marriage act, but still it's not of help, because we have the cultural, the religions, and everything. Still, it's a barrier to into that young lady. So we need to making sure that while we are talking, we are speaking on the, it's not the time to speak. It's not
Mm,
the time writing a good papers. It's not a time to go into conferences and do blah blahs. No, 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 no. It's the time for action. It's the time for us to go to the on the grassroots. It's the time for leaders to see this is very crucial and very important. And as well as to have the comprehensive multi-faceted approach involving various stakeholders. The government should collaborate with the CSOs and international partners after we have seen the barriers, the challenges on the way forward. What are we going to do, the achievement, and where we didn't achieve. So all of these organs should stay together and see where are we failing and what can be done. And I can say lastly, because I'm dealing with SRHR, I can talk more about the allocation of good infrastructure to reproductive health and services, because we cannot talk about leadership or political space, engaging more women in political spaces. At the same time, women are suffering from reproductive health system is not nice. Women are suffering from diseases. That is not health, because I believe healthy is wealthy and capital. Healthy is and wealth, and women are more vulnerable into diseases, specifically in reproductive healthy. Still to date, we are talking are talking about maternal care. Still to date, we are talking about healthcare for the baby, and
mm,
yet all these things touches women. And still, we need women to be in the political spaces. And those who are leading into those political spaces are men. They don't want to hold the women agenda. So what are we going to do? It's for us now to see how are we going to empower this. This is not not only doing a women empowerment. Yes, women can be empowered. Of course, if you're empowering a woman who is sick, what are we going to do with that empowerment? It's nothing. So to invest or to allocate more resources in good infrastructure for a reproductive health system. So, and for CSOs and other stakeholders, what can be done? It's like identification of these women who are in politics. Like my colleague was saying about Nala. Before, I'm very interested in politics, and I'm doing a politician. And if God wish, next year I'll contest in being a member of parliament. And I was once contesting in being a member of parliament in 2020, and I'm going back again. But
mm,
there is a fewer spaces who recognize young women who are interested in politics. I have a lot of I have a group of young women. They really want to be in political spaces, but they are afraid. They are just afraid of. They have these tendencies, like they are scaring. Like we're not financial stable. We are not able to go into this, because politics and economics go straight. You can They are friends. Without money, you cannot. You cannot pinpoint, or you cannot go straight to the in political spaces. That is the game. So with more women that are scaring off. So I think Nala for identify these young women like I in the political spaces, and still there are more women want to be in political spaces, but they are lacking that kind of knowledge. They are lacking that. What are
mm,
we going to do? They're lacking training. They're lacking support, material support, financial support, mentorship, and guiding. Like, okay, you're supposed to be this and this, because and most of the women they're facing, apart from financing, uh, even the sexual harassment. And we have seen some women, they enter into politics. If someone is there as a godfather wants them to be sexual partners, so that they can be penetrating into political game. That is, it's triggered my mind. It's very really disturbing, because I was the one who facing that kind of challenge. Someone
mm,
is very big position, but still they want you to be to be they want you to be to have a sexual whatever, so that you can get that position. And that thing it's mostly disturbing a lot of women, and even the women they are into that position, uh, community think that they get that position because of having sexual affairs with someone. Some of us we are just fighting for ourselves, so we need to change that. We need to to put more effort into this local level. We need to impact more knowledge. We need to support more women into local level. We need to identify these women who want to be in political spaces. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tabi. You spoke so much passion, and all the best in the next elections as you take part.
Thank you.
All right. And yes, if you're just joining us, this is the WAPA Conversations assessing 21 years of the Maputo Protocol, progress, challenges, and future directions for women's political participation in SADC. And yes, I've been speaking to Memory from Zambia, Tapiwa from South Africa, Tapiwa Nashe from Zimbabwe, and Tatu Mbamba from Tanzania. You know how time runs away on you when you're having such progressive conversations. And I'm going to open the microphones for everyone. I'll start with you, Memory. Then we go to Tapua Lukuta. We come to Chiriga. And I'm giving you guys 30 seconds to just say your last words as we conclude this conversation.
Okay.
Memory.
Thank you so much. Memory Tapela Banda from Zambia. I will continue to say, let us be more inclusive. Leadership has no face, leadership has no edge, leadership has no race, leadership has no tribe. Therefore, let us continue to push the agenda of the Maputo Protocol in the SADC region as young people. Let us stand in the gap. Let us tell our stories. Let us take up space and be able to voice out on issues that were being affected on and issues that are actually affecting others. It is okay, completely fine to be an ally in the community. Therefore, if you see a voice that is being discriminated, stand in the gap and be able to voice out, be able to be the mic, the speaker, and be able to create a platform for others to voice out their issues like this platform. Thank you so much for having me and the others. It has been a great pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Memory. Over to you, Tapua Lukuta.
Thank you so much. In closing, I really want to thank Walpe and Zim Daily for affording us the opportunity to actually to speak emotively and to speak from the bottom of our hearts, hoping that we are inspiring any young lady who is out there, who aspires for leadership, who aspires to be part of the crew, that leads such conversations as well. So from me, I really hope that from here onwards, we will continue to be that generation that is different, from others, the generation that is unafraid to speak out, the generation that will not judge or condemn its counterparts, but will actually encourage and inspire others to continue pushing to be the best versions of themselves. I look forward as well to the implementation of an adaptation as well of the Maputo Protocol in the rest of the SADC countries, hoping that they've seen the value of having such a framework which protects the girl child as a whole. So thank you so much again for having me, and until next time.
Thank you so much, Tapua. And Tapua Nashechiriga.
Thank you so much, Zimdele and Wapa, for having me. And I think in closing, I would want to say we are not fully liberated. We're not free. We don't have a liberated Africa until we have every woman on the continent being able to speak their mind freely, being able to have equal opportunities with the same opportunities that men have. And most importantly, we must be able to tell our African story. We must be able to amplify our voices and ensure that we give those who are living in the forgotten areas the opportunity to raise their voice more than we speak for them. Thank you.
Excellent. And Tatu, your last 30 seconds, please.
Thank you so much. Once again, I'm Tatumbamba from Tanzania. I have very, very small words. It's time for action. Paperwork are very enough. We need to as one. We need, but standing with action. So that's what I can tell.
Excellent. And thank you to my panelists. You have been really awesome. I've learned a lot today. And I hope all of you who managed to join us have also been able to reflect on the Maputo Protocol and the role that you can play individually in order for us to achieve the goal that we've set ourselves to see every woman in every space participating. And yes, we need to collaborate and work together towards creating a future where women's rights are fully respected, protected, and fulfilled. My name is Yvonne Muchaka, and it has been a pleasure being with you on this conversation. Until we meet again next time, it's pleasant viewing. It's bye bye for now.